Time for business then. We're going to start in Japan today. In fact, the IMF holding one of its twice yearly meetings. Will's with us here on set.
Yeah, hi Stuart. Yesterday, of course, we heard about the IMF reporting on Europe, saying the continent's response to the debt crisis was critically incomplete, saying that it's been haphazard the way they've dealt with the debt crisis. That is still the number one threat to the global economy, according to Christine Lagarde, who's been talking just in the last few hours. However, while encouraging leaders to hurry up, actually Christine Lagarde has said that Greece, in fact, can take a bit more time, 2 more years to be precise. She said that front-loading, i.e. carrying out reforms and cuts as soon as possible, is not always a good idea. Let's take a listen.
Time is of the essence, meaning that instead of front-loading heavily, it is sometimes better, given the circumstances and the fact that many countries at the same time go through that same set of policies with a view to reducing their deficit. It's sometimes better to have a bit more time.
Yeah, there you go. That's Christine Lagarde there. Meanwhile, Standard & Poor's ratings agency, they've given their latest verdict, not on Greece this time. This is Spain, isn't it?
Yes, and it's not a vote of confidence. They've downgraded the country's credit rating again, now at BBB-. What that means is that they're one notch away from being junk status debt. Standard & Poor's says that it is due to an increase in uncertainty over whether the European bailout fund for Spain's banks will kick in if necessary and how effective it will be.
Had a bit of an effect on the markets?
Yep, it's doom and gloom, I'm afraid, here in Europe at the Open. We've seen that Spanish news of the downgrade have an effect quite instantly. In fact, it's been carrying on from sessions elsewhere, but you can see a fourth session in a row starting in negative territory there. Carrefour, the world's second largest retailer, their stocks are up 4%, bucking that trend after third quarter figures saw sales stabilise and revenues rise. Meanwhile, let's take a look at Asia. I'm afraid that's been broadly down as well. Even Hong Kong, well, they've just about managed to finish in positive territory, but they're considerably down from where they were earlier in the session.
OK, well, next, investors are reacting to news that a merger between BAE Systems and EADS has been called off. The defence giants announced yesterday that the deal can't go ahead because of reservations from some of the governments involved.
The BAE-EADS merger never even got off the ground. The British and European aerospace firms have thrown in the towel over creating what could have been the largest civil and defence contractor in the world. With London, Paris and Berlin all wanting a say in the matter, political compromise was too hard to reach.
Our view is that for this company as a merged entity to have been successful, it would have needed to be able to operate as a commercial company free of undue control or influence by any single government.
Germany and France exert control over EADS, whereas Britain holds a veto over what BAE can do. And each government had its own conditions for the €36 billion merger to go ahead. Berlin has national elections on the horizon, and concerns over jobs and a loss of influence were running high, notably that the new firm's civil operations would move to France and its defence work to Britain.
What really brings home to us is how difficult it is to get agreement between governments in an area such as national security. So this doesn't bode well for the future. If European industry does need to consolidate, if we do have to join up, work together more closely than in the past.
As the fallout from the merger's collapse settles, London, Paris and Berlin are all playing the blame game as to who's at fault, while EADS pointed the finger squarely at Germany. And the dream of a European firm to rival the almighty US Boeing is set to remain just that.
And let's just take a look at the immediate effect that had on EADS and BAE shares. EADS actually was up quite considerably in Wednesday, trading up 5.5%, well, 5.3% there. The shareholders obviously pleased that they're not going to be going more into defence, whereas BAE Systems, they're going to have to stick on their own, and shareholders don't seem to fancy their chances at that.
And next, we've got a change at the top of the global PC industry.
Yeah, the number one has been knocked off its top spot, according to Gartner, a research firm. Hewlett-Packard, in fact, has been there for quite a while. Lenovo is the new player. In fact, they're not that new, but they bought, in fact, IBM's PC-making facilities a few years back, and now they're the ones who manufacture ThinkPads. You can see there the latest sales, according to Gartner. Lenovo just edging out Hewlett-Packard. HP itself, of course, facing a bit of a crisis of confidence at the moment. They've been talking about doing the same as IBM and getting rid of their hardware business to focus on services, but they've been dithering about that. So obviously it's affecting their sales as well.
OK, well, a little bit earlier on you heard that teaser when we were talking about the business university. It's Cambridge University that Will was alluding to, breaking an 800-year-old track record. It's finally borrowing on the market.
Yeah, and borrowing around 435 million euros on the markets, in fact, through a 40-year bond, taking advantage of very low rates. They're going to be using that money to invest in new facilities, stem cell research, graduate accommodation, etc. What's quite interesting, apart from just the sheer size of this loan and the fact that it's the first one in 800 years, is that Moody's has given them a AAA credit rating, and because it's a stable AAA credit rating, it's actually better than that enjoyed by the British government itself. So if you, well, I suppose they have got a longer track record than the United Kingdom, which only came around, in the 1705 with the Act of Union, would that be? But a little while ago, but still not 800 years. So maybe Cambridge is a better bet than the UK.
He's an Oxford man. He's an Oxford. If you're a UK person, you
quite
know why
balanced,
I'm laughing about that. Very balanced, yeah, very good. I'm impressed. Now, here in France, unions are getting ready for tense meetings with managers at the drug company Sanofi today. Now, hundreds of job cuts are on the cards, although the issue is highly political, in fact, and the government here has intervened to try to reduce the number of job losses.
Over €5.5 billion of profits last year and almost 1,000 redundancies planned in France. That's why these employees of Sanofi were protesting last week. The pharmaceutical giant says it's part of the restructuring it needs to stay competitive. The likely layoffs will be in the research and development departments as part of a wider shake-up. Sanofi may be one of the world's top drugs makers, but it lags the leaders in key areas like producing generic medicine. But employees are furious both at the jobs losses and the fact that it's a research department in Toulouse that is set to be sacrificed. They were amongst the thousands of protesters that took to the streets this week in Paris. Their cause has become a political football. The French government is under pressure as key industrial sectors like car making and the steel industry continue to shed jobs. On Wednesday, Arnaud Montebourg, the minister charged with defending French industry, claimed he'd made a breakthrough.
Sanofi has just announced there will be 0 redundancies. Their restructuring plan will now only involve 914 voluntary redundancies. I thank Sanofi for not firing anyone and for saving Toulouse.
The government then says it has forced Sanofi to reduce the scale of the layoffs, but the trade unions remain unconvinced. Some of their questions, if not their concerns, may be resolved Thursday, as Sanofi summons them to a general meeting at its HQ in Paris.
And finally, I know you use Facebook, Stuart. And
a little bit.
You'll know the like button.
Yeah.
Well, apparently Facebook is trialling a new button called essentially the want button.
The want button.
They're not calling it that exactly, but they're saying it. They can put stuff in something called collections, which is basically saying your wish list, things you'd like. It can be anything from clothes to things you like, such as restaurants, but meals, that sort of thing. Competing with Pinterest, which is a similar sort of service, and Facebook trying to tap in there to e-commerce. Basically, you'll be able to buy the things on your wish list through the Facebook website, and presumably they'll be taking a cut.
Good idea, but I want a don't like button. That's what everyone wants on Facebook, I think. Well, thank you very much. Well, with the business, the very latest news after the break. Claire will be here. Stay with us.